So welcome back, everybody. We can still see that there are some microphones off, so please turn them off so that we can have the right picture in the right timing. That would be fantastic. So we are going to continue with our next speaker. So very glad to introduce to you Joanna Hart, who is the development manager at the Harwell Space Cluster that we have been hearing a little bit about in the study before the break. So now we will hear from herself how they have managed to go from really this cluster of very few actors to a fantastic cluster today, just in about 10 years, I think. So Joanna, are you there?
I am indeed. Thank you very much, Joanna.
Fantastic. Thank you for being with us and very welcome. We are so much looking forward to your presentation. Please, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Joanna. As you said before the break, it's always good to look outwards and see what's going on elsewhere. And so it's been really interesting for me today to actually hear more about what's going on with you, what's going on in Sweden, and perhaps later on we can explore, where there are possible linkages in the future. So it's a pleasure to be here. Let me just see if we can move slides. There we go. As Joanna has said, I am the Harwell Space Cluster Development Manager. My role is to help the Harwell Space Cluster grow. So I sort of sit in the middle of everything and try and really work towards that growth. In terms of, I thought it was worth just introducing me for those that haven't met me before, in terms of what's my background. I started off as a scientist. I did a PhD in particle physics a fairly large number of years ago now, but we won't dwell on that. I then went into investment banking for almost 10 years, worked at a couple of Swiss investment banks. My focus there was really telecoms rather than satellites, and I was advising hedge funds to buy and sell telecoms shares. Then I had a career break for children and returned and started my second career in the satellite space at the Satellite Applications Catapult, where I worked for 4 years with a focus, first of all, in the CEO office. And then I went on to be head of evaluation and impact. So some of the discussion we just had in the previous talk is very relevant to the kind of thing that I was looking at the Catapult. But this job as the Harwell Space Cluster Development Manager came up almost 4 years ago now, and I took it because it was a great opportunity to really get involved and really take what was already a good cluster and really take it to that next level. The Harwell Space Cluster itself I sit within STFC, which is part of UK Research and Innovation. You may be aware a couple of years ago, the UK research councils were all brought together under one banner, UKRI, UK Research and Innovation, and that invests £8 billion on behalf of the UK government in research and development across the UK. So for those that don't know where Harwell is, it's about half an hour from Oxford University, about 45 minutes from Heathrow, and not about an hour from London. So really very well connected and very easy to reach internationally. And it's an old RAF base, and that's what it's really been built on over the years. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, there we go, mind of its own, apologies. So in terms of this, the Harwell campus, this RAF base was used for a number of years for testing nuclear capability. It was then decommissioned and it was reinvented as a science and innovation campus. The first big piece of kit that was there was the diamond light source, a diamond synchrotron. We also have a neutron and muon source in the top left. That's particularly useful from a space perspective because you can do some radiation hardness testing. In between, you've got the central laser facility, which enables you to test, use high-powered lasers to be able to look inside things. I mean, effectively, Between the ISIS neutron and muon source, the light source and the central laser facility, we've got those 21st century microscopes that allow you to look into pretty much anything at the atomic and molecular level. And they are used for looking at a variety of things. It might be looking at COVID to try and understand, how we can develop some of the vaccines, or it might be looking at rotor blades to understand where welded joints have come or broken down. So a whole range of capability there with all the sort of required specialist expertise to actually run those facilities, and also the computing capability, because obviously in most cases you're not looking at it with the naked eye, you've got to look at the scatter, so you need a lot of computing power to be able to reform effectively what it was that you were looking at. And that's all there. And that's largely run by STFC. There are other UKRI facilities at Harwell, including the Medical Research Council. We've got a new vaccine manufacturing innovation centre, obviously set up, or slightly set up before COVID, but has been turbocharged since. And all those facilities, as well as our space facilities, mean that we've got over 6,000 people. And those people largely have technical, science-based expertise. And in turn, this has attracted a large number of organisations. We've now got over 200 organisations at the campus. And you can see from the green spaces, there's still a lot more room for us to be able to grow and develop and attract more organisations and facilities in. And it's really that sort of melting pot. There was a great image earlier used by Emil in terms of how you actually drive innovation, that's sort of bringing everything together. And I think that's one of the key advantages that we have at Harwell campus. And it's not just in space. We've got all those 200 organisations, but having them all in one place is not enough. You need somebody who's going to try and pull them together, not just let them go into their offices every day and then go home again. We need opportunities for them to interact, that sort of cogwheel that we saw in Emil's presentation. And so what we've created are these clusters. Space was the first one to be sort of more formally recognised as a cluster about 10 or so years ago. And then we've had the health tech and energy tech have been set up since. And there is an equivalent of me in health tech and energy tech. But again, we're focused not just on looking in our silos. I don't spend my whole time just thinking about space. I'm also thinking, well, where are the opportunities? How can we link health tech and space together? How can we bring those different elements? Similarly, how can we look at energy tech? And I've got quite a few examples of companies that really are those crossovers. For example, Sci-Health, it uses space data to analyze what's going on in the atmosphere to know when you should be putting on your suntan lotion. I've got Kaiser Space that is looking at how you use microgravity as a platform to really drive drug discovery in the future. We've then got companies like ABSL who make batteries both for satellites and for pacemakers. So again, they cross the whole range of different clusters. And it's those crossovers that we're always looking to promote, that multidisciplinary innovation. And I think really, the key things that help in that is the language that each sector talks is very different. So for the space companies to be able to engage with the health tech companies and start to learn, what are their three-letter acronyms? How do they talk? What are their focus? What are their challenges? What are their problems? Are really the opportunities that you've got at those crossovers. Just to talk briefly about the health tech and the energy tech clusters, obviously my main focus is on space, but I think it's just worth highlighting the health tech cluster. It's been going since 2017. It's got about 60 organisations collectively employing over 1,200 people and growing a lot at the moment, because clearly a lot of organisations are using the capability within Diamond, the laser facilities and ISIS to really look at COVID and potential opportunities to develop new vaccines, etc. We've also got a new building. I went back to Harwell campus yesterday, and the Rosalind Franklin Institute is just about to open. They've taken off all the boarding from the outside, which is really exciting. It's going to bring 240 scientists from 10 universities. And that again is very much about that multidisciplinary. How do you bring people with different expertise together to work together on different projects? On the energy tech side, it was only launched in May 2018, but again, we've already got 57 companies, and that focuses on a range from sort of clean growth to battery capability. And we host the Faraday Institution, which is managing the Faraday Challenge on behalf of the UK, which is really trying to drive that improvement in battery behaviour in the UK. And there's new things coming as well. We've got the Natural History Museum. We're going to have a digitisation centre at Harwell. We've got the Extreme Photonics Application Centre, which is going to be able to see inside even more things, and the National Computing Centre. Why are they all there? We've got that capability, that skills base to be able to do it. And now what my job is how do we leverage all of these broader capabilities that are at Harwell to help not just the space sector, but beyond. And I'll talk more about the advantages of being part of a cluster in a bit. But I think the key points have largely already been raised in the previous presentations. So stepping back into the Harwell Space Cluster, what's happened, where's it come from, how does it work? So RAL Space has been going since 1962. It has been involved in over 217 instruments that have flown in space. So there's a huge amount of heritage and capability there. And it was a very similar slide that we saw earlier about Swedish Space Cluster. That you need that heritage, that knowledge, that ability, that sort of confidence that you can actually deliver on what you say you can deliver. And RAL Space has really got that. The European Space Agency opened their facility in the UK in 2009, and it was a clear choice to set that up at Harwell. And there's a big building now that opened in 2015 with flags. You can see it just over, I think it's my other shoulder, that is their EXAT centre, and they run their telecoms division directorate from there. UK Space Agency also has a presence, as does the Satellite Applications Catapult, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But having all of those organisations then in turn attracted a lot of companies, and so that company growth has really come over the last few years. In terms of, let's move the slide forward, keep losing the buttons, there we go. One of the big facilities that's just being finished on the end of the slide, or the end of that history chart, is the National Satellite Test Facility. And when I was back yesterday, I got to go and have a look around this. That chamber really is enormous. It's 8 meters across by 12 meters, and that will be able to simulate being in space. And this facility is an open access facility that any company can utilize as long as they book in and they pay for it. We also have, aside from facilities, a huge amount of expertise. Because you've got all of those people working on different things, you've got the breadth of expertise, and not just in the sort of science and technical side, but also the Business Incubation Centre. We've already mentioned ESA-BIC. Ours has been going for over 10 years. We've also got scale-up programs to help those companies that are going from sort of 10 to 100 people. We have got a climate office. There's user-centered design facilities, which is really about how you bring people from other sectors in and say, how can space enable this? And concurrent design facilities, which are really good for sort of speeding up development processes. So there's a whole range of facilities and expertise across the campus, which companies are able to use. You obviously also need places for them to work, because they want to use those facilities and then go back to their desk, or at least they did before COVID. Clearly things are going to change, but I do think people want to get back to places like the Harwell campus and the Space Cluster because of those innovation opportunities Some of it you can do online, but just meeting people does make such a huge difference. And so I think there will be opportunities to do that, although just in a slightly different way to how we've been working in the past. But we've got lots of flexible office space for all different sizes. And for companies that are growing, we're able to flex that office space as they grow. So I think it's worth just touching on the Catapult. It was mentioned earlier in terms of what it does. So Catapult is one of what I would see as the key stakeholders in the cluster, but they are in and of themselves an entity that is there to drive satellite applications across the whole of the UK. Their remit from government is to drive economic impact. So to see companies that they work with to grow in terms of jobs and revenue. There are 9 catapults across the UK, one of which is in satellite applications. There's a range of others, digital to offshore renewables to cell and gene therapy. So it's a real range, a mixture, all really pushing to drive economic growth in their particular sector. And they're really a key part of the innovation landscape across the UK and have got a lot of support and drive. There's 3 key ways that really the Catapult works with companies. One is to energize the market, so sort of stimulate the market for satellite applications. I think this is now starting to snowball, but when I started at Catapult at the beginning of 2014, people were still unsure why satellites could help them. Why were they important? And still it is surprising that even this number of years later, people don't realize the importance of the positioning that's coming from the satellites that are up in space and the importance of the information coming from Earth observation, etc. They also look at empowering the technology, so working with companies, partnering with companies on projects so that they can actually help that company go from a first idea or a prototype to that next level. They're particularly looking at sort of bridging that gap where a lot of companies are unable to make it from that sort of very low TRL to the higher TRL piece. And then they also have a range of business support and resources and facilities to help those businesses on their growth. And as mentioned, the UK has a clear target and Catapult are clearly a part of the landscape that's trying to help drive that, as are all of the organisations across the top here. As you can see, STFC, who I work for, but there's RAL Space, Catapult, ESA, UK Space Agency. I work with them collectively to try and drive the cluster forward. Each of those organisations is a national organisation. So their priorities are very much about growing the whole of the UK space sector. What I'm trying to do is bring them collectively around that Harwell Space Cluster piece. And you'll see, you know, we now have 105 space organisations and over 1,100 people. Yes, there's a bit of a wobble over COVID, but actually I'm confident we've still got 100 people, 100 organisations on site. It's a bit hard to know because everybody's working from home, but hopefully we'll see. But I mean, I think what has been shown is through COVID, that power of that clustering, that connectivity, those collaboration opportunities has become more important because you're not seeing people as much as you did. And I think that's a real opportunity for the future between other clusters like the one in Sweden is, you know, how can we actually help to be conduits to stimulate not just opportunities within our clusters, but also internationally as well. And I think there's more opportunities to do more on that. In terms of the companies that you can see here, there is a whole range. There's a number that have been through the ESA Business Incubation Centre, and then we've also got companies that have grown from that sort of 5 to 10 people up to the 50 people. Oxford Space Systems, for example, they found VC money at Harwell campus and they grew from 3 to now over 50 people. Resitech went through the ESA Business Incubation Centre, again, gone from that 3 to 50 people over that period. I think the one thing I would note is it takes a long time for companies to get from that, you know, that 3-person point to the 50+ point. And then what I'm finding now is that they get to that 50+ point and they kind of sit there for a while until they do that next leg up, which is that scale up journey piece. And that's the area that we're spending more time focusing on now. You'll also notice that there are a lot of the big prime names on this. And the reason they want to be involved in the cluster is to link into that innovation, to find out what all of these companies are doing and connect into them. And this is an effective mechanism for them to be able to do that. So I thought it was worth just sort of stepping back a little bit, having told you about the Harwell Space Cluster, and really sort of focusing on what is a cluster. And there is an awful lot of research out there, quite a lot by Michael E. Porter. I actually wrote a paper last year that was published in the Journal for British Interplanetary Society that compared the academic research for cluster with what was going on in Harwell Space Cluster. And I think, what we've been talking about earlier this morning is, what's happening, how we're developing all of these things, and we're all kind of learning from experience and learning from what others are doing. But it's quite interesting then to look back and say, well, how does this fit with the research? Is this the same as clusters in other sectors, etc.? And so I thought I'd just, talk briefly about what a cluster is and how it makes success and link that to the Harwell Space Cluster. In terms of, what a cluster is, it's very much that geographic concentration, those interconnected companies in any sort of field. And cluster can be very geographically specified or a bit broader. I would say that the Harwell Space Cluster is that co-location of industry, academia, and public sector bodies all relating to space. And that's the key thing that brings it all together, that drives everybody forward. Sorry, it's just going to take a minute while it thinks about going. There we go. So in terms of cluster benefits, the key benefits that I highlighted in this paper, and one could pick different ones out of different papers, but having those national facilities, the access to talent, the knowledge sharing, the showcasing, and that support for startups and growing businesses. In terms of facilities, we have a whole range of facilities. I've highlighted a few already, but it's not just the facilities at RAL Space, which are really designed for testing satellites, designing satellites and testing out all the components. But we've also got a range of facilities at the Satellite Applications Catapult, particularly focused on antenna testing near and far field, some on the they've also got quite a lot on SATCOMs, and they've just opened a new disruptive innovation for Space Centre. And if anybody's watching the news today, I think you'll see some press coverage on Astroscale, which is using one of the operations centres at Harwell. So there's quite a lot of facilities and capability. ESA also has a climate office and manufacturing lab, and I've mentioned the incubation centre. Having those facilities that are all open access, by that I mean they still have to pay at cost, but they are available for anybody to use. You just book in and you can use them. What you haven't got to do is build your own. So a large number of companies really benefit from being able to use those facilities. We also have a huge access to talent. Clearly, there's 105 space organisations with over 1,100 people. So there's a lot of space specialists and that real range across it. Much as it irritates STFC, RAL Space and others, that their staff kind of get pinched, as it were, or given more exciting opportunities. That is part of what creates that ecosystem. The fact that you've got a few organisations that really have some skilled staff that can then help drive those or give those opportunities in the future. And, we do see people moving around a little bit. It also helps because people who are coming into the region, they know that if the job that they go for doesn't quite work out, there are other opportunities. So it makes more sense to relocate. We also have the ability to share knowledge across the cluster, and that's an area that I spend a lot of my time doing. I send out newsletters, I reach out to companies on a regular basis and just provide them with that knowledge, what's going on, what's happening. You are trying to make sure that they know they are part of something beyond just themselves. And one of the key things I think that helps is then for other companies to be able to talk about others. But I don't think it's just communication. It's also about those peer-to-peer learning opportunities. I regularly host roundtables. I get groups of Harwell Space Cluster companies all together in a room. And I say, right, you've got 5 minutes each to effectively pitch your company to whichever external collaborator, customer, important person I might have in the room. And what I always find from doing this is that when the first time people do it, they overrun and I have to shut them up. The second time they do it, their pitch is way sharper and they've got it all within 4 or 5 minutes. And that makes a real difference because they've watched what other people have done. And also what I find is in doing so, there's almost always 2 people that are part of the cluster that then connect afterwards. So it provides that collaboration opportunity. And so my role is to sit in the middle and really enable a lot of that communication and knowledge sharing. Also do a lot of showcasing. There's obviously events like this where I could talk for hours on all the companies that are at the cluster, but really it's about raising that profile, making sure that people know that if they want to find out about the UK space sector, there is an easy and obvious place to go to because you can meet so many companies in one day. And many of those companies actually have the majority of their workforce elsewhere, not necessarily all based at Harwell, but the fact that they have a business development or a small office just means they're linked in. So it's easy for them to pop out and join one of the round tables, give that 5-minute pitch and then get back to the desk. Obviously, you've already shown a few of these slides where you have all these logos on one page, and they are so powerful. Much as the graphic designers hate them, being able to show those logos all in one place really works wonders. And also, obviously, there's media and things like that, and so we try and get as many articles as we can in whatever press opportunities come up. I've mentioned support for startups, and you obviously have the same with the ESA Business Incubation Centre, which is fantastic. As I highlighted, it does take time. These startups rarely become huge companies overnight. It's a journey. It takes time for them to get through the various fundraising rounds, really develop their technology, develop their customer offer. But now that the ESA BIC in the UK has been going for over 10 years, they have supported over, well, almost 100 startups. And collectively, when you look at their alumni, they've raised over 77 million in equity. There have been 4 exits and actually a very good survival rate. And from my perspective, having the ESA BIC has been really useful because over a quarter of the alumni stay on campus. I think probably the number is a bit higher, but for now, obviously with COVID, it's a little bit unclear. You can also create opportunities for engagement, and clearly events like this are one of those opportunities for more international engagement. But we've also got connectivity across the UK. There's a whole range of different other organisations, and having that sort of central point, you can then link into other people. And I've got good connectivity across the UK to be able to enable that. Also, enabling collaboration opportunities within the cluster and beyond. So really, in summary, clusters are a very powerful mechanism to accelerate commercialization. The theory says it, the practice that I've seen and been involved in at Harwell Space Cluster says it, and you've also been highlighting that in the talks that have already come through today. And I think there's some huge opportunities for engaging locally, nationally, internationally through those clusters, and it's just that part of enabling. And you can really showcase what it is that's going on. You can also enable collaboration within and outside of the cluster. So just really to conclude, the Harwell Space Cluster, we clearly have different clusters there. that enables multidisciplinary innovation. It enables space companies to connect with potential customers and collaborators. We've got some significant national facilities that people can use on a sort of effectively pay-as-you-go basis. And having all of those key public organisations in one place is also really important. And that in turn has attracted those companies to the cluster. So we've now got that over 105, 1,100 people. It's a place, it's really got to that critical mass. And I think, you know, one of the key things is that maturity level. And I think Harwell is really getting to that sort of really mature point where it can really properly work as a cluster. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Very, very interesting, and also congratulations to the success that you have had within your cluster, because you were mentioning many times things take time. And as I understand it, when the UK started their UK research and innovation program and started to really focus on a special program with goals measurable 10% of the global space market, this was really the change of things when the curve, the hockey stick, so to say, appeared. Is that right?
Yes, I think what that goal gave was a common language and a common direction for everybody. It really brought together industry, academia, and government around one central aim. Every single organisation reflects that goal, and so everybody now knows which direction they're going in. I think, you know, we've then it's taken longer to actually turn that into practice, and I think we've got some really good elements here. And I think you know, we know the UK has very strong ambition in space, and our politicians are very keen to push it forward. And so I think we will see another big push forward later on this year.
Yeah, I can actually remember I was in London in one of the conferences, and you started to talk about UK innovation. It was rather new at that time, maybe some 10-12 years ago, and now seeing exactly what has been happening behind these decisions is powerful. I think I wrote down so many things here that would be wonderful to talk to you about, so we really have to meet Joanna. We also have a question from the audience. Do you have a figure or some percentage maybe about the investment in this 10 years journey of governmental resources and private resources? Do you have that figure right now?
No, I don't have. I don't have one off the top of my head. But the way I would answer that is there clearly is there has been a range of different investment, both in terms of the catapult, in terms of the National Satellite Test Facility, less so in terms of RAL Space, because most of that is funded through projects. So, and then you've got the broader private piece that comes around the outside. So there has been a significant amount of investment, but we need to face facts. Space is still on that journey from being a publicly funded sector to being a privately funded sector. And I think we would see, you know, I could imagine the shape of that curve is currently very high public funding, but I think increasingly we will see that being overtaken by private funding.
So still governmental investment is very, very important to get things going, and will be for more years to come. But we can also see that the balance is actually changing here. And you are such a good example of this, so really a role model. So thank you so much, Joanna. We will get you back on stage during the panel discussion. But now we would like to go on to the next speaker, which is Ida Lind, business development and strategist at the Skellefteå municipality. Skellefteå is not known as a space region perhaps, but they are known of having a very nice opportunity right now to develop their region. And they are in the battery business, attracting a lot of people, having a lot of opportunities, but also challenges. So we have invited Ida to talk about what they are going through right now and what we can learn from this journey. So Ida, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There
Thank you so much.
And now we can see you. So please.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to make sure that I have control over the slides. Well, my name is Ida Lind and I work at Skellefteå kommun, primarily with issues related to education and research, and especially the development of Campus Skellefteå. But today I'm going to talk more broadly about opportunities and challenges in the light of a new industrial era. There's a lot happening in Skellefteå right now. We are in the middle of a full societal transformation. The maps are redrawn, not only locally and regional, but in many aspects also national and internationally. But what does it mean for us? What are the major challenges and how can we better nurture and take advantage of the opportunities that it gives us? That's what I'm going to talk about today. And to be honest, when I first got the question to speak at the Space Innovation Forum, my first thought was like, what does Skellefteå's current situation and what I work with has to do with space? But after some thought, I realized that there are actually several common denominators, and I'll come back to that. But I will start by shortly describing what is happening in Skellefteå right now. And as I said, we are in a currently societal transformation, a new industrial era. And in the next few years, at least 75 billion Swedish crowns will be invested in Skellefteå. And we know that this figure probably already are much higher than that. And of these 75 billion Swedish crowns, 10 billions are public investments made in the municipality group, including a new seaport, a new water catchment, a new culture house, a longer airfield, new schools, etc. And all these investments make Skellefteå to the municipality in Sweden that has the highest investments per capita. And all these investments are also, of course, done in a sustainable way. An additional 10 billions will be invested in new housing, and it's being built like never before and for a rapidly growing population. There are a number of construction companies that believes in Skellefteå's development and are stepping up to fill the gaps in the housing market. We have a pace around 300 to 500 new homes per year, and we know that this is barely enough to fill the gaps. But the rapid pace of construction means that new residential areas keep popping up and redraw the map and city landscape in Skellefteå. But it also means an opportunity to think smart and to build for a modern and sustainable society in a sustainable way, of course. We calculate that another 35 billions are invested in the private sector. And this is most likely a very low figure compared to reality. Current and ongoing investment seems to be far above this due to subcontractors to Northvolt, large investments in the mining sector, and as we could read in the newspaper yesterday, larger Northvolt, and not least Revolt, Northvolt's factory for the reuse of batteries, which isn't included in these numbers. Infrastructure is additionally around 5 billions. I lost the control here. I seem to have lost the control over the slides. Let me see if I can get it back. Oh, there. Well, with the growing population and a growing business life comes needs for more new and modern logistics hubs for heavy transports, more bridges over the city river, etc. So as I said, we are gearing up, and while doing so, we're also laying the foundation for a modern and sustainable society. But you may wonder, of course, what is the cause of this transformation and all these huge investments? And Northvolt, you might think. And of course, yes, they are an important factor. With Northvolt, we are preparing for the largest industrial establishment in modern times. It's Europe's first and largest factory for the production of lithium batteries. And by 2024, 2025, they plan to have almost 3,000 employees. With subcontractors, well, it's a new industry growing in Skellefteå. But everything happening here in Skellefteå is not only about Northvolt. One could say that Northvolt is not the reason, but rather the result of a work that began a while back and with a clear vision to grow. When we agreed upon our vision for 2030, it was based on a lot of hard, thorough work to identify our areas of strength, to understand them, and to understand how we could make better use of them. We also did a solid job of understanding our weaknesses, which we, of course, talk less about. But this work leading up to the vision for 2030, which is all said and growing, was also a very inclusive process and helped to create ambassadors. I mean, it's one thing to sit in meetings with potential investors and deliver a sales pitch for why they should choose Skellefteå. That's easy. What makes the big difference is when such potential investors go out on the town and talk to people and realize that everyone says the same thing. That is a strength. And I believe that this is one of the most important lessons for all municipalities, regions, and industries that want to grow. Make sure that you have ambassadors, and a lot of them. But why Northvolt, the future of energy, chose Skellefteå was no coincidence. They actually fit quite well into our sustainable profile and our long tradition of facilitating development and innovations for the sustainable solutions of the future. Actually, Skellefteå was already in the 20th the most electrified municipality in Sweden. And still today we have vital parts of the entire value chain for batteries. From raw material, such as metals and minerals. I mean, this region holds one of the most mineralized mining districts in the world. And Boliden is in many aspects also innovation leaders, not least when it comes to electrification and the use of new technology. But we also have a leading position in energy production from renewable sources. Basically, no one can deliver renewable energy to such high quality and such low costs as Skellefteå. And Skellefteå Kraft continues to spearhead branch development in Sweden. When it comes to production, we have a long tradition of large-scale, smart, and sustainable production. And in addition to becoming battery production, Skellefteå also has a significant growth of companies specializing in environmental technologies and take lead in the development of electrification and use of batteries, for example, in railway maintenance, mining machines, or electric aviation. To recycling, tied to Boliden, we have Rönnskär that has a leading position in electronic recycling. And now Northvolt is planning to build Revolt here, a big plant for recycling of batteries in Europe. And last but not least, with Luleå University of Technology in Skellefteå, we also have world-leading research in many of these areas. And there is still big opportunities to take it further and to take position from a value chain perspective. And I'll come back to that. But time flies. And so far, I've just talked about opportunities and strength. And that's, of course, something that I could talk about all day long. But I would be lying if I didn't also mention the challenges that all this entails. A given challenge is the speed at which all this needs to happen. I mean, 2024, when Northvolt planned to be in full production with 3,000 employees, that's not too far away. And another major challenge is the supply of skills and people in a region with unemployment rates basically down to zero. And it's not only Northvolt with subcontractors, the number of new job increases to additionally 1,500. And moreover, for every industry establishment, you often calculate the number of total jobs, 1.5, then including additional jobs around every new job. For example, in service, logistics, more people living, shopping, etc. And in this area, the figures are more uncertain. Northvolt talks about a total of 18,000 new jobs. The municipality has a more cautious guess of 7,500 new jobs, and the truth is probably somewhere in between. But one thing is crystal clear: we need more people, and we also need more people with the right skills for Northvolt and for a growing business life in general. And this is indeed a challenge, and it's on top of our agenda. And we have to tackle it as we usually try to tackle challenges, by looking forward, working hard, trying to think new, and above all, by teaming up with the right partners. An example of that is this. Last year, we entered into a strategic partnership with L2, RISE, and Northvolt. And the focus for our collaboration is to develop new methods and structures for large-scale skills transformation for the green industry of the future. And we also work together to take position regarding education and research in the field. And here you can say that global trends are going our way. And we know that what is happening here right now isn't just interesting from a regional or national perspective, but international perspective. And moreover, the trend isn't only towards energy conversion from a value chain perspective, but also the conversion of entire societies. And that's what we're good at. And together with these partners, we are building the Arctic Center of Energy, an international competence center where research, business, and education can collaborate and take this even further. But back to the question, what does all this have to do with space and the space industry of the North? Well, of course, when talking about innovating the future of energy, there are several synergies. And I also noticed that Joanna Hart talked about energy tech, and I'm certain that there is more to explore in this area, and that there is a lot of synergies with space-related innovations. It also highlights the need of great innovation support. But what we really have in common is great potential in growing industries and an urgent need to develop the attractiveness of the northern parts of the country. There are a number of huge investments happening in the North Sweden right now. And if we're going to attract the right talents and get more people to want to live here, we have to work together. And I also find it very interesting when the government's coordinator for investments in the North actually totally turned the Swedish map upside down. But when I say that we have to work together, I of course think of industries, regions, municipalities, and decision makers. But just as important are the individual residents. We're still quite few people living here, so we have to all be ambassadors. And I also believe that everyone being an ambassador is especially important when the population starts to grow and when the population becomes more international and when the composition of the population becomes completely different from what it has been. There will be challenges. But if we're all set on growing, if we keep on doing our homework and understanding our strengths and learn how to use them, but also if we're aware of our weaknesses and learn how we can work with them, by looking forward, working hard, and working together to create and develop attractiveness, and teaming up with the right partners, then it's all possible. And we can reach for the stars, and the sky is not the limit. So thank you. And
Thank
I
you
think
so
that there's
much.
still a couple of minutes if you have any question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ida, for your presentation. And also, you see how much we do have in common. I mean, societal transformations in Skellefteå and the societal transformation here in Kiruna, not only moving a town because of the mining activities, but also looking forward to an expansion within the space business. So we do have a lot of opportunities, but that also means, and it comes together with challenges, because just as you said, it is happening right now, and we have to jump on that train because otherwise it will leave us behind. And things are going so quick, as you said, Ida, that that is the speed of the change and the global formation here, that we are actually taking part of nothing that is just local, but it's a global issue and a global matter, makes the opportunity and the challenges even a bit bigger. So thank you so much, Ida. Please come back to the panel discussion a bit later. We will now introduce our next speaker, which will be Henrik Runnemalm. Henrik is the Vice President of Global Technology Center at JKN Aerospace in Trollhättan, which is southwest in Sweden, where we have another space cluster and space region, I should say. Henrik, welcome to the stage.
Yes, thank you.
And you will be talking about how JKN works to both strengthen the attraction of your space region, but also how you work together within your cluster. So, please.
Thank you. Very happy to give a flavor of an industrial view on this topic. So let's see if I manage now to run this. Yes. Okay, so I represent GKN Aerospace, and as such, we are of course an industry and the branch of all these questions that we've just heard, a lot of great insight of how to operate. So of course, I will be a little bit biased towards the industry view of all this, but definitely recognizing that it all comes together as a great puzzle when we play together. Government, academia, and industry is key stakeholders in this, and we all ask different questions from our point of view, of course. So politician would definitely look at what we just heard from Ida on how to grow the region and how to make sure that it fits together with all the investments. Researcher definitely will challenge us in all that we would like to find answers to. We want to grow sustainable business, whether it's a small startup or if it's a large business that needs to always transform the way of thinking and adopting to new realities. Definitely a question that has been on the agenda the last couple of years, and not the least the last year as such. Education, I think I will come back to this in a number of slides, but it's definitely part of how we view a successful agenda from an industrial point of view. Networks is created through different kind of collaborative hubs. Joanna's example of from UK is a great example. I had the opportunity to visit that site some years back, and it definitely looks on the maps that was shown that it's continuously growing. So from an industrial point of view, of course, research, development, produce parts and then support the parts both from an operational perspective, but also with added on services, and at the end of the day, taking care of what's left in the total life cycle of a product. So just to remind everyone, I have just a few slides on this, but we come from a business where we always think about where to play. I think that's the industrial way of presenting this, but building on what we have as a strength. Being an OEM for a complete system is one of our key strengths that we are using in all situations. We develop system and modules of different products, both from commercial aerospace, military aerospace, and space application. And for us, launcher systems is the key elements that we focus on. Having said that, at the bottom here, it's also important that we are always just a part of a bigger supply chain. We need to be very good at what we do, and therefore we need to pick our bricks in this puzzle. And then from our journey in space is, of course, the Ariane European launcher system. Since 1974, we have been part of developing that system. We are in Sweden the center of excellence for the exhaust nozzles and the liquid turbines that feeds the main engine with the propellant. We do both technology development, product development, and manufacturing of this, and therefore, of course, requires to challenge our people to be at the edge of what's possible to do in this area. And that is being done, of course, by collaborative work together with academia and partner companies around our ecosystem. We are looking forward to the Ariane 6 launch, of course, which will be a great happening for us all, I think, in Europe. So quite interesting times. So now I shift to part of the presentation which relate to Science Park. And there is a Science Park in the western part of Sweden called Innovatum. It's physically located in Trollhättan, so very close to where we live, but it's also a key element of all of what we do. And it really starts with attracting people, or kind of spearing or sparking that first interest in finding things out. So this is a place where young people, family can go and just have fun in relation to different technologies and be inspired. Of course, this facility have rocket launches on display, both the Belgian version as well as the larger European version. This can be seen in this picture. We have the replica of the ISS and so on, but we also have opportunity for the kids to play with guided vehicles or self-guided vehicles in some kind of simulated space applications. There is a startup, we heard about that earlier. It's one of the Swedish nodes, which is kind of an important element of our ecosystem. Being a large industry, this is something that grows on the side of what we do every day, but clearly an important element of our larger community in the aerospace area. Added to that, in the same science or technology park, Science Park, there is an industrial environment where we can bring new innovation into scale up test and do the last or latest greatest step towards implementing new technology. And this is also a facility that is run in an open environment so that everyone can join and utilize the different techniques that is available in this arena. Of course, there is different types of events related to different areas. This is just some examples related to some of the space activities. Many of you, of course, knows about Rymdforum has been a event that has been attracting quite a lot of attentions. There is also, last year we have this international space event where we discussed quite heavily on how to attract new investments into this area, which was very much appreciated and drew a lot of attention from around more or less the globe. 14 countries came to join this event, and it was definitely a very interesting activity. So that's an element starting from kind of outside of what we do, but we definitely see that this is an important element to us as a company. Then I usually come back to our research and technology strategy one-pager, which is really defining the growth of new technology through seed projects that we run together with university and institutes. We build demonstrators together with our partner structure, and that is of course with the ambition to enter into new development programs to feed the market. And for us, at each point in time, it's very important to have a portfolio of activity in all different levels. That builds the strengths over time, but also the security or confidence that we will have something to bring to the market in the next step as we move up towards new applications. So how do we use this to grow the ecosystem around us? Not only looking at the academia, which is have a very clear place here. I brought into this presentation a little bit of a journey that we have been experienced the last couple of years, and it shows some interesting things, I think, when you look into this. So we are partner in one of Europe's largest demonstrator program ongoing right now. It's called Clean Sky 2, where a number of aircrafts, helicopters, as well as new engine concepts are being demonstrated. As GKN Engine System, we are partnering into 3 new engine concepts, and through that we are exploring both full-scale testing, we are validating methods and techniques, and we are along that journey also preparing for the necessary manufacturing technologies and material learnings that is necessary to bring this to the market. While doing this, there is of course also something on the side of us, and that's how do we secure that we can develop a supply chain. And again, this is my biased view, but being an industrialist, I would like to have a supply chain close to what I do. probably similar how Northvolt is acting up in Skellefteå. It can't just be one box on its own. It requires an ecosystem around it. And this is a journey that we have taken together with a number of partners. And I think this is an important view and different to the academic view. We start off by introducing new companies into our journey by adding in their capability very easily or straightforward with just producing a part or a geometry that is necessary to achieve a certain demonstrator or something. Then normally they would go, if they follow this journey, they will go into learning more about the specific of handling materials that is maybe not the common activity that they do. So moving into titanium or super-based alloys and those kind of things. It takes them to a level where they could be part of our demonstrator activities. But the next step would then be to move from having at the smaller company a standard that they follow, being acquainted and learn about different specific requirements and certifications. We call it NADCAP in the aerospace business that they need to follow in order to be able to deliver. It gives them access to deliver some special processes that is used to produce this part. Then as they grow, and normally they conform to ISO standards for 9,000 and 14,000 type of standards, which need to be transformed into the AS, which is the aerospace add-on to these base standards, which everyone follows. So there are some specifics around this. And it also requires each company to have a quality system that they can rely on for their own and internal operation. This journey, a number of companies have actually followed now. It has taken a number of years, but they has grown through the technology stream into becoming a supplier to our daily business. And then they enter kind of this aerospace domain where they every day deliver parts and hardware and products to our build line, which then goes into Rolls-Royce or Pratt & Whitney or GE, which then goes to Airbus and Boeing and so on. So it's a long journey, but it's a strategic choice that we have made as a company to bring this. And took one of the last national demonstrator program. It was called Swedish Demonstrator for Engine Technology, basically, Swedemo Motor. And this is the partner structure that took part in this program over 4 years. So it, of course, includes a number of academia and research institutions, but also a number of SMEs that have been working through this journey to become a supplier into the aerospace business. But it all comes down to people. We have synergies in between our 3 main areas: space, military, and commercial aeronautics. We always try to strive and find synergies in between the domains. We look for the edge technology, but at the end of the day, it's the people that makes the difference. So by that, let's say thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to any questions or the round table later on today.
Thank you so much, Henrik, for your presentation. Really interesting to see it from the industry perspective, because we have many different perspectives here, and it is really a complex world we are living in. We will keep the questions until the round table, as you said, or our panel discussion, because we are running a little bit late. Very interesting, though, to see how JKN has, in such a clear way, taken a very big responsibility to develop the supply chain in the area. Because my experience is that if we need things to change, patterns to change, we have to do things. And if the big industry can pull, and we as enablers, like a project that I'm working in, we can push and you can pull, then we can actually together do something about changing our patterns. And that's why it was so interesting to hear you talk about this for many years structured work to get the regional suppliers on board. And also how a company like JKN, looking into their core business, of course, in parallel, always understand that the kids are our future employees. We need to stimulate, we need to be there and help, because things do not happen by themselves, at least not always. So it's good to know that what we are doing is actually making a change. So our next speaker and our last speaker before the panel will be Niklas Österberg, who is the investment manager at Arctic Venture. I know that Niklas is also working at the ESA BIC, the ESA Business Incubator. So he's heavily involved with both investments, but also supporting new business ideas. So Niklas, welcome to our scene. And there you are, very welcome. And please tell us about, what do the investors think about a region? When does it become attractive to invest money in a region? Please, Niklas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's see where the presentation is. Okay, thank you. My name is Niklas. I'm very thankful to be able to present here for you guys. And I work for Arctic Ventures and the Arctic Business Incubator, and therefore also the ESA BIC Incubator Center. We at let's see. Perfect. Okay, now I control it. Okay, the Arctic Ventures is for entrepreneurs and companies. We are gathering business angels from the region or with the interest of the region, so they can collaborate and invest in companies in the region. We are looking for the right idea, of course, but more often we're looking for the right team. A good team always beat a good idea. So this is very important for you guys thinking about maybe starting a new company, etc. The team is extremely important. We invest in companies which are aiming to become Swedish export companies, and they need to have innovative idea in the background which also is you can protect the idea. Okay, how is our connection with the Arctic business? It's very simple. We found out a couple of years ago that our company needed money. Surprise. And we then started an angel company after some long research, an angel company. And the angel company is actually just a limited company which contains business angels, people with money who are interested in investing in startups. So now we are on our second angel company, and we have about 50 business angels close connected to the incubator. We only invest in company startups which are joining the Arctic Business Incubator. Oh, okay. Sorry. What makes things attractive for investments? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I have some difficulties here. Sorry. Okay. I have some trouble with the presentation. Okay. What makes a region interesting to invest in? Okay, first we must be very sure, very familiar and sure that we're competing not only on European level, we're competing on a global level. What are we competing with? Yes, we're competing with money, how to get money to the region. We're competing about ideas, how to get the smartest companies, etc., to the region, and primarily we're competing for talents. Okay, so you need those three and talents is rare. You don't invest just in a day. It's all about the talents and the human resources. An investor invests in people and then the idea. There are need of more opportunities for investments. So you need to have you have startups, which obviously need investments, but also small, medium companies and bigger companies to invest in. So investment company or investor needs something to buy in. You go into a store and you want to buy milk and there's no milk at the store, you maybe won't invest. You cannot even invest in milk. So it's so we need to show that there are other investments, etc. You also need to go where the money is. It's seldom any point to just invite investors to the region for round tours. But when investment is needed, you go where the right investors are and then maybe invite them. Soft landing is something which are like, okay, I want to move my company or I want to start a company in the region. And I maybe want to have my family with me. Of course, I want to have my family with me. So how do we help these families to come to our region? Because we need people coming from other regions. Within our incubator, 20% of our companies come from other countries. 100% of our in our incubator center, in our incubator, the space company, 100% come from other countries of the founders. So we need a soft landing system. Soft landing is a wide, you need to have people welcome to your home, and our home is the region. So maybe you meet them at the airport, you show apartments, you show a job for their spouse, you show the best good schools, etc. So then we have the fifth. We already have talents here. We have talents from all over the world at our great technical university. There are hundreds of people coming from other countries which are really, really talented. They have good dedications, they know what they're really talking about, and we need to keep them here. That would be the easiest thing to get talents, to keep the talents here. I actually heard from a boss, I hope it's true, that the university yesterday, the boss of the university yesterday said, we are going to help all students to have a summer job. That would be fantastic, because that's a really, really good incentive to have people staying in the region and maybe start companies or joining companies or attract investments. This is not a one-man's job. And by that, I mean, we need to do it all together, and we need to help each other also. I mean, we have at the incubator, we have a company moving up from Stockholm. I know for sure that they don't know how big our municipalities are. They know there are a lot of trees up here. They come from like Mexico City, Karachi, and some other big place on earth. And we are really, really, really few up here. Let's see if why should you move or start your company up here? We have an innovation support system which are connected globally. The incubator, the Arctic Business Incubator, became the 7th best incubator in the world a couple of years ago, University Close Incubator. And we are connected on so many levels, the university, the industry. We have a great export companies in the region. So we are connected globally, much more than many other regions in Europe and even in the world. So that's a positive thing. we are close to university. Of course we're close, because university is everywhere, almost everywhere in the region. We have as a backbone a big industry which help the region to create a stable job market. We have embryos of soft landing systems, but we need to maybe process them more and maybe be all over the region. Okay, let's see. No, I can't. Okay, so thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to be here. I look forward to look at the panel talks, and if anyone wants to connect to me, my details are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Niklas. Very interesting to see that no matter what perspective we are talking about here, there are so many common denominators. So you have been talking about things that others have been mentioning. And of course, we always and very often say that money talks. Now talking about the investor's perspective, but you also lifted soft landing. People, we are talking about people. And to attract people, we need to have a soft landing in our region. So that was a very interesting part that we haven't been speaking so much about today. So thank you for that, Niklas. And tomorrow, when we have the workshop, we will have the possibility to talk about not only investing, technologies, collaboration within all the cluster members and so forth, but also the soft landing part. So anybody who is interested in building attraction in our space region, they are actually going to be a big help tomorrow, no matter what perspective you're taking, because everybody is needed. So we have, if we look at the schedule, we have 5 minutes break. I guess that will be good enough, or should we say 10 so that we have time to take a breath? So at 11:20, 20 minutes past 11, a little bit, slightly bit later than scheduled, but 20 minutes after 11, we will come back, have an interesting discussion with all the speakers, but also some special invited persons that I will introduce you to in 10 minutes. So see you then.